This is Matt Tardio, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
I love it. We were talking off mic about stuff, but both Matt and I have a lot of combat experience. So there's always crazy stories. And these are the things, these moments, these small moments that you don't realize, like people who are home, they don't know what it's like to be us. A lot of times you leave the camp and nothing happens. That's as safe as can be. When it gets dangerous, then it's crazy. Nobody wants to be part of that. But
right.
We were talking about when you get offered something, one of my tells and how well I'm doing is if it's Ramadan and the commander, which just happened, the commander, the Muqaddam, and I'm trying to teach my commander a little bit of a lesson, right?
Sure.
So this is Lieutenant Colonel. And so I say, Muqaddam Muhammad or whatever the guy's name was.
Sure.
How do we do Ramadan? I mean, should I not drink out of my canteen in front of you? And then he's like, Mr. Beat, I like to drink whiskey. Because he also likes to drink whiskey, and so I go there and I have my rip on the bottle. Yeah. Because I wanted to show my commander a little lesson, like, hey, you got to lighten up. This is how these people work. They aren't as religious as you think, but you get offered whiskey, food, all these places. I'm obliged, especially with my job. I've got to figure out how to break the ice because that's my thing. That keeps all of us alive, hopefully.
No, 100%. And like your interactions, your relationships with those people. And I don't know depending on what year that was, 2010 up to 2012, I think maybe even back in 2009 is like when we really started to see the upticks on those green on blues. And there was, I want to say it was like an Army captain that was like Skyping home to his family. And he was talking with his wife over Skype and he ended up getting shot in the back of the head as he was like live with his wife. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I thought about that just the other day.
Yeah, those personal relationships are huge when it comes to keeping your butt safe and making sure that everybody's on the same page, And I'll tell you what, you want to talk a Ramadan story? This thing is absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So I was over in Paktika Province. We were on this tiny little clat. It's probably like 50 meters by 50 meters or so. And, there's just a little contingent of us out there with a couple of Afghans. And dude, we were under constant fire on a daily basis. I mean, it was like by the end of the first day, I remember one of the gun positions that we had set up. There was literally a mound of 7.62 brass, like up to my knees, right? Like, I mean, it was literally knee high 7.62 brass. And we had brought, I think it was like 4 kicker boxes worth of ammo out to that location. All the roads are bombed out. There's no way in other than driving. You couldn't fly birds out there at the time because they had surface to air missiles. And we're just going to pretend like those didn't get supplied by, somebody with the last name Clinton, maybe doing some crooked things she didn't want to get caught doing in a dream that I had one time and by mistake. And I'll tell you what, man, running low on ammunition, it freaking sucks. And knowing that when you have to go back to get more ammo and you got a 3 or 4 hour drive cross country because you can't take the roads because they're all blown out, you're going to get ambushed, you're going to hit an ID, things are going to get blown up. You kind of want to not waste ammo unless you need to shoot ammo. Right. So Ramadan comes around and I think this year it was like August timeframe, something around August timeframe. I forget. It was somewhere in there. It was summerish time. Right. And comes time for the big feast. Right. End of everything. It's time to eat, baby. Sun's going down and everybody's excited. End of Ramadan. Yay. And the Gans that were with us, they go, hey, tonight, like when the sun goes down, we shoot. And I was sitting in the mortar pit with my buddy, just smoking, just hanging out because it was getting close to dusk. And so we're hanging out at the mortar pit, getting ready for shit to hit the fan because, when the French and Indians and the Taliban attack is what, at the morning and in the evening. Yeah. And so we're sitting there smoking and joking. This guy comes over and he's like, hey man, can I like tonight, can like we shoot, And I'm like, Terp, come here, buddy. Like he starts explaining, no, this is supposed to be a huge celebration. We want to celebrate. We want to shoot in the sky. And, we want all this shit to go off. And I'm like, for the love of God, man, like, can we not just fire tracers in the sky aimlessly? And so we have like this little discussion. We're like, look, man, we don't want you guys blasting all this ammo because we're going to have to go back. And this dude stops and like, he puts his hands on his hips and in perfect English with like this really limp wristed accent, he goes, but it's my Christmas. And we're like, well, we can't argue with that. So yeah, I guess you can go ahead and shoot tonight, bud. I took a break, right? So sun goes down, nobody's shooting, really nice time. So I go back, like sit on my ruck or whatever I'm doing. And man, they just start opening up with 50 cals and stuff off the back of the Humvees, and they got 240 rounds flying. And then for some reason, somebody convinced my buddy to start hanging some loom rounds for him. And then before I know it, there's parachute flares. Before I know it, there's parachute flares going off, like all sorts of shit. And then we got dudes out there loading up freaking mags of trace around, shooting the parachute flares out the sky, celebrating Ramadan, and all this stuff's going down, right? Now, here's the funny part. The next morning, I kid you not, the next morning, somebody calls me and they're like, "Hey, Matt, come here, man. We got like a couple GANs that are approaching this. I don't know. It's like a dad and his kid." And I was like, "All right, I got it." So I grab a Terp and I go to talk to him. This dude walked from like 3 or 4 clicks away, 3 or 4 kilometers out, just to come up to us and tell us how much he appreciated the Americans celebrating Ramadan. Like, it meant so much to them. It was such a huge deal that they want to come over and thank us. And, what's going through my mind as I go out to talk to him, like, what do you got? Like, your kid got strapped to a bomb, or like, what the hell's going on? So I went back, grabbed him some candy, go back, give him some candy, thank him for coming. That night, listening to the ICOM, right? Listen to, because, you just listen to ICOMs. And
that's us listening to them, everybody. Us listening to them. Go ahead.
And they dropped it. And so we're listening to them. And they're like, "All right, so what do you want to do tonight?" And one of them's like, "Hey, we're going to attack the Americans." And it's just like silence over the radio for a second. Like, it just goes quiet. And I'm like, "What are they saying?" He's like, "They say they're going to attack us." I'm like, "Okay, cool, man. Sounds like a party. Can't wait," And this other guy keys up. It was like this delay. And this other guy keys up and he starts talking. I'm like, "The hell are they saying, man?" And he says, "We cannot attack the Americans." I'm like, "Why?" "Because the amount of shooting you guys did on Ramadan, it's like, it's too much ammunition. Like, if you had that much to shoot to celebrate a holiday that's not yours, what the hell do you guys have in there? Like, we're all going to die tonight." And so literally they decide that they're going to go attack like the provincial, police department or whatever. That's just kind of line of sight towards the horizon. And we just start watching, tracer rounds and RPGs and shit slam into them. Yeah, it was hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
So I'll throw one back at you. This is not Ramadan. Although I was walking to the chow hall. This is in Baghdad, over by what was it? I can't remember these places. Camp Liberty, maybe it's Camp.
That sounds right.
It can be Camp Freedom, whatever. Over there, just south of Solder City. My boss and I are walking, and then we're like, "What the hell was that? Was it a bug? What was it?" 7.62 round. Just just kind of, and no one's aiming at us specifically, but there are live rounds flying around. That part is just wild when you think about. You're in proximity to all kinds of crazy things, like 7.62 rounds, 50 cal rounds, just falling out of the sky for the most part, but not going to harm you. I've actually put my hand out, purposely caught a BB from a shotgun, or duck hunting before, and it's not going fast, right? But still, if you were that dude on Skype, and catch a stray round somewhere, you're still dead. Yeah, it's
right, man. Well, dude, I mean, yeah, and it's not even that exciting or even worth telling, but it's just kind of funny because it brought back a memory I hadn't even thought about in a long time when you had mentioned that. I over in Iraq, I was, we had like a day off and I'm on a fob and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to go for a run today." Grabbed up a buddy and we're going to go for a run along this, around the freaking fob. We're just going to get the hell out and go, chill and run. I just blow off some stress. And we're running along this fence line around the back of the fob. And as we're jogging, it's just like a random zinger, ends up snapping right between my legs, right through the fence, just bing, like off the ground.
Yeah.
And we just kind of like looked at each other and we're like, meh, like
it's so, oh my God, that's so true. So I'm training, I'm running, I'm up in Mosul at the, whatever that fob was in the northern part of Mosul, of the city itself. I can't remember.
You're talking about the one that had that chow hall get blown, right? The
No, I worked there. The one that's in the other side of town from there, and maybe that's called Freedom or whatever. But yeah, so Leslani or what was that one called? Anyhow, that one, yes, I worked there, but this is a different time to the north, just a couple miles though. And I'm running. I'm getting in shape because I'm going to go run my buddy's bachelor party in Vegas. So keep in mind, I'm in Mosul doing my job and trying to get in shape. So I'm looking all big and lean when I get to Vegas. And I don't normally run on camps because I'm a counterintelligence guy and I know better, right? But I'm like, I have got to break the rules. And so sure enough, they put what I believe was a rocket into, some kind of launching vehicle. And it comes ding, ding, bouncing down the street along with me like it's my friend, And I was like, holy shit, if I had been 10 feet to the right, I would have had it didn't blow up. This was just waste. And so the thing just comes in, and I'm like, what the fuck? Kept running, because when you've been mortared enough times, you just realize, like, if it's your time, it's your time.
Oh, dude.
And it's crazy, but that's just how we have to think about it.
So my platoon was on QRF when I was in the infantry, and I am trying to remember the name of this damn fob, and I don't, but it had like an Iraqi army, compound that was attached to it on the way out. And we were on QRF, and, often they would be like, hey, you're going to, indirect fire comes in. So they give you the point of origin, and you end up taking off to go see what you can find and try not to get ambushed. Right. And, so we hear everything like going off. We're like, all right, cool. Good thing we're staged and ready to go. And we start rolling out, and up pops on the BFT, the grid for the POO site, the point of origin. And it's literally right outside the fob. I mean, right outside the fob.
Right.
When I say right outside the fob, I mean like immediately outside. And so I'm like, I'm in the point vehicle. I'm TCing. I'm the truck commander of the lead vehicle, navigating us over to, where they're sending us. And it ends up turning into the ANA compound, or I'm sorry, not the ANA, but what the hell were they? The Iraqi army compound, whatever.
Shit, I'm about to say the IDF, but yes.
Yeah, my brain's fried, man. You know where I'm at.
Too many sites.
So we end up like going and driving in there. I'm like, and the whole time I'm like, this has to be wrong, man. Like, there's no way. And like the grid was so spot on that when I parked the truck and just opened the door to get out, like right on the ground is like the burn mark, the improvised rocket launcher. And it's just, it's like, you bastards are so crooked. And because we'll talk about how crooked the Afghans are. We'll talk about how crooked the Taliban is and everybody else. But I think what gets really overshadowed these days by all of those is how damn crooked those Iraqis were, man. Particularly the Iraqi police. I mean, they were.
Well, they didn't get paid anything either. I mean, so part of what I would do is, this is for everybody watching. And thanks everybody for all of the super chats and everything. That's awesome. It's going faster than I keep up with. I'm trying to listen to Matt. But, my job, I got 4 jobs, whether I'm supporting you guys or supporting a brigade while they also support you guys. It's help the commander win more, help the commander lose less, help the enemy lose more, and help the commander or the enemy win less. Sure. And so I'm looking at all these things. And at one point look, I'm in these things, but I'm not part of the firefight. I even wear my helmet different if I've got it on, so that the Americans know that, there's Pete, let's account for him. Because although I can shoot, that's not my job. And when Pete's shooting, that destroys my trust in that valley, right? Because I'm not the guy that does that. So we get into this firefight. The Iraqi or the Afghan police have to order new ammo. And I'm like, it's a great time to look at how we're doing, because part of one of the commander's lines is, the create capacity within the local governance.
Sure.
And so they send this request up. We need more ammo. And I'm talking to the chief of police. How does this work? How long will it take? Are you confident in it? everything else, right? And so it's a secondary thing that I'm doing, but I'm tracking, I'm clocking. And so I go up to the next level of request. Sure enough, it's gone up. Sure enough, it's gone up. And then I kind of stop looking because it's no longer regionally attached to where I'm at. And then it doesn't ever come back down. And so I go back, and this is like 2 months later. And I go and I find the E7 where it got stuck. And I'm like, hey, whatever happened to that ammo request from the chief of police who got into a firefight with us? He's like, I killed that. Yeah, I killed that. Those guys are tied to the Taliban.
Oh, yeah.
They were in Zabul. Mullah Omar lives a mile from where we all live. We didn't know at the time, but that was 100% true. So you think these guys are tied to the Taliban, but also now an American killed an Afghan government process because of the fucking Taliban. What? Yeah, we're around the Taliban every day. I got the Taliban called a meeting for my buddy Rich and I. They're like, hey, these guys are getting influential. We want to bring them out to one of these farms. We didn't know this. But they hacked off on us working out there because we were savvy. We understood what it was to work in Afghanistan. And the same thing applies to Iraq. But that lesson you're talking about, we struggled to learn these lessons because we wanted everything to be linear. We literally wanted to close with, encircle, and destroy the enemy, have them stack arms and march off. That was never going to happen.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about like meetings and all that stuff, especially over inside of Afghanistan. If we ever hold like a Shura or a Jurga and you end up going over there and sitting around, and I couldn't tell you how many times I ended up sitting in there, and we always knew that, the Taliban would end up talking to them afterwards, right? And figuring stuff out. And at one point in time, I was attached to a SEAL team, and I'm trying to remember what the hell they call them. LPO is the lead petty officer. I'm trying to remember what the platoon commander is, but yeah, anyways, he finishes up the meeting and he kind of like stops for a second and he goes, and when we leave here, the Taliban is going to come and they're going to ask you what we talked about. That's what they're going to do. And he goes, and when they do, I want you to give them a message for me. He's like, I want you to give them a message for me. He said, tell them we're coming for them and we're going to fucking kill all of them. See you later. And like the interpreter, right? And I was just like, I love that line. I stole that line from him and I used it every single time afterwards because it absolutely means something. You know what I mean? Like, what'd you guys talk about? What do the Americans want to know? The Americans just wanted to tell you that they're going to come and kill you. You know, and that was, I thought that was genius and I loved it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's that there's all these other kinds of communication that happen when you're in a battle space. And that's part of it. It's like, hey, we're here to play. I love it. People don't get this, but especially in the Army, I love it when the E4 and the 2-shop comes running up, Pete, and Pete is like, it's key. Like, I don't go by Mr. Turner. I don't go by calls. I'm me. Everywhere I go, I'm the same dude. And so he'll run up, Pete, they know who you are. They want to kill you. And I'm like, yes, that means I'm in the game. I got drafted. Like, I exist. Because if I don't exist, I'm not doing my job. I got to know that they're talking about me, you know?
Right.
And everything else will take care of itself.
Right. Yeah, exactly, man. God, I love talking shit to those guys, you know, like even over the radio sometimes, you know, off their icons. And I'll still do it to this day. You know, I got a freaking captured Taliban flag, like right up over here behind my head. And so every time I get people that want to talk shit to me online, and I used to do it with the ISIS flags and shit too. Unfortunately, it is. I think I can say it like that. It is my opinion that Russia doxed me at one point in time, and these mother effers. I ended up getting contacted by the Taliban, and this was before I did anything public, right? And I was getting ready to fly out, and I ended up. Booking a ticket through DTS, traveling out of country. And it was right after I just left a certain place, and I'll be damned if I did not start getting death threats via Facebook Messenger from ISIS and directly threatening my family and kind of let me know that the moment that ticket hit, that they knew I was leaving town and that they were going to be coming after me. And so it's either, you know, Russia playing games or it's ISIS playing games.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, man, I got back from, like, obviously I had to delay things for a little bit until that problem got solved, like a couple of days, you know? And after I got back from that trip, they started hitting me up again after I got back home. And I just felt like, I mean, these guys would talk shit to me. And I'm like, I don't give a shit, man. I've got guns on me. Come fucking party. Yeah. You want to party? Let's fucking party. You know, and then so I just started talking shit to them and sending them pictures of their flags and stuff like that. Be like, here, you guys drop this. If you want it, you can come fucking get it. You know, just straight up, you know, you guys want to threaten to kill me online? You want to come at me, bro. Yeah. You come near my family, I will kill you and everybody around you. Fucking come at me. And I think that is, I think that's appropriate. And I'll still do it online to this day because I'm tired of these pieces of shit. Tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of it is just cowardice talking, right? And so they're just saying that you can't take it that it's all that, but you know, a lot of it's just harassing, and
it is
because that's easy, it's cheap, it's free, you know, and
it's effective.
So you have to, it is effective. So I'm really big on this. What do you think about this? I'm big on affect over effect. So that dude unassing from his house and coming up and bringing you chow, or, you know, all these other things that happen when you get someone to emotionally respond to the stimuli of the battlefield and it's positive. If you can gather those things, that's a form of winning that the Taliban is better at than we are. Because when they show up, people know how to respond emotionally to them, and they are doing things like giving them chai, putting them up, providing, you know, they take, you know, all these risks. We tend to think about effect. We're like, well, we've attacked that village 15 times. We've dropped 10,000, pounds of this, and we've got this effect of, you know, this many KIA. And that don't mean shit, because I'll go there the next week and I'll say, hey, what happened here a week ago? And they'll be like, you know what? Those Americans killed a bunch of babies. And I'm like, no shit. Is that what? And
so I try to explain that. I try to explain this to people, you know, especially when it comes to fighting terrorism, and people are, we could talk about the war in Gaza where people are like, hey, man, IDF is not doing so good because they've been there a year now, almost. They haven't been on the ground quite a year yet, but, they've been there a year now. And, Hamas still exists inside Gaza. They're still losing soldiers. They're still getting in firefights. And I was like, okay, what's your point? Because what people don't understand is that there's two different types of terrain that we focus on. Right. Generally speaking, like the conventional army, big army, you're going to be focusing on physical terrain. Right. Like take X hilltop, hold that hilltop, key terrain feature. Right. And the special operations community tends to target the human terrain and go after the human terrain. And so, some of my proudest accomplishments are things like opening up a girls' school, liberating villages that were held hostage by ISIS for years, where they had instituted martial law and just done some horrible things to those people. And all of that, and this is my response to it, right? Like all of that absolutely had a long and lasting effect. And people will try to tell us like, hey, look, you guys lost that war. No, the hell we didn't. All right. Yeah. So we went over to Afghanistan with two main objectives: to prevent safe harboring of terrorism, to make sure that America couldn't get attacked, and to kill UBL. Both those objectives ended up getting accomplished until maybe within the last couple months here, right? Which is a whole separate conversation. But if people go back and they look, and this is how we had good effects on the human terrain. If people go back and they look at the pullout from Afghanistan, and you see people clinging to those aircraft and falling out of the sky as they're taking off, we won. Yeah. And I'll explain that. It's like you planted that seed and it takes a while to grow. This radical Islamic terror didn't happen overnight. It's a seed that gets planted and it takes time, right? And you can kill a man, but you can't kill an idea. In order to kill the idea, you got to kill everybody to get rid of the idea, right? And so that's where we won, and they're going to eventually lose, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. And boy, it gets complex from there. I mean, just even that fight for, like, we always talk about hearts and minds, right? In the coin doctrine and everything else. The thing that we missed, right? This is where we didn't have our sights aligned properly. The government needed the hearts and minds, not us. We were interchangeable. And so because we couldn't reliably get an Afghan and Iraqi to get up an ass out of their house and go to the government with the problem and get a solution, I would go out and look like, is anybody even using the government? Like, no. And in fact, so I wrote this report. We were kind of assessing this in the area. And one guy's like, over there with that flag, what do they do in that building, the government building? That's Rudy. He owes me money. He bought a goat and never fucking paid for it. And then you take that back to the boss. He's like, God damn, how do we get people to believe in this thing?
Yep.
Like we have all this advantage. We're working hard through the winter. We can't move them an inch towards the government. And so that's part of us losing, right? So how do we get more involved, and how do we learn how they make decisions? And
welcome to Village Stability Operations, buddy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Holy,
when they make decisions,
failure.
Yeah,
God, man. And it was the right plan, poorly executed, because at the time that like VSO ended up coming out, it was about the same time that Obama had the retrograding effect going in the drama.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And the crazy part about that, the absolute craziest part about that is we were actually seeing good effects on the ground, but they were trying to push it so quick that we'd end up, I'm trying to remember what the pillars were. It was like security, governance, and something else, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. Right. Economic support, economic stability, right? I think was the other one. So great success. But the moment we ended up getting security and we ended up getting governance kind of slowly tied in, we didn't finish off those pillars.
Yeah.
And so they had no economic support. And people don't understand when you go all the way back, like, to the 80s and stuff like that, when it goes back to like Russia actually going into Afghanistan and the amount of crap that was taken. You want to talk about a genocide? Right. And so these people are like literally fleeing across the border, going into Pakistan and losing their entire way of life, right? Like the way they were raised, the way they preserve food over the winter, the way they preserve food over the summer, the way, all of this stuff gets lost because what was the median age? Like expected death age? It was something like 38, right?
35, 38. It was, yeah.
You expect to be about 38 years old. And dude, it was lost by the time they came back. And then they go back and they kill everything, but they didn't have any money. They didn't have any way to support themselves. And that's where the cycle started to go, because these people would end up going over and going to the Taliban in these remote locations where there is no government. There is no government out there except for the Taliban. And so you either have lawlessness or you have Islamic law. You know, if somebody steals my goat, what do I do? Oh, I'm going to go to the Taliban, and the Taliban is going to settle this based on Islamic law, right?
Absolutely true. Yeah.
If I need money because my family is going to go hungry, what do? I go to the Taliban and I get a loan. In return, I promise to pay it back in X amount of time, either through labor, or if for some reason I can't do labor, fighting season comes around, pick up a rifle, go have fun, go plant this IED, go do these things, right? And that's where we started really screwing up, because the higher ups didn't understand that portion, or they neglected it. And I remember when the Brits were planning on pulling out, I think it was like 2008 or something over there, 2008. Does that sound right to you? 2007, 2008. The Brits were planning on being like, F this, we're out. And in order to get them to stay, we sent them down to the South to combat opium. And so all of those people that owed the Taliban money, the Brits are out there burning their damn fields full of opium, and they couldn't work it off. And so they had to pick up guns and fight. Absolute madness. And this is the idiocracy of the military, and why we should not be responsible for nation building. Yeah.
Well, and what are the approaches? By the way, everybody's asking you to stand up. I don't know if you're supposed to stand up. These maniacs, man, they're going.
They're not maniacs. Those would be followers of mine from the Speak the Truth channel. And
no, I get that. I mean maniacs, like they're having a great time, and I love it. That's what.
Oh yeah, no, they want to make sure I have pants on, and I do.
Well, that's what I'm assuming. You know, I'm wearing pajama pants.
Yeah. And you know, maybe I will. Maybe I'll take off my shorts and stand up with underwear on. How about them apples? Huh? You like that?
Yeah. You want to see the show? Oh,
is it Thursday?
It's always Thursday when it's no pants time. We had a guy named Pete show up to our team, right? And there's already a Pete there, so you're going to be something else. And so we're like, do you have a nickname? Because we're trying to be cool. And he's like, yeah, they call me Tripod. And so I'm like, whip it out. You don't get to have tripod unless you're leaning on something big.
Hell yeah, buddy.
Like, bah, 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 bah. And he became Needle Dick. You know, and it's like you can't claim these things. I want to get back to the Afghan thing, because this is interesting. So I looked into the VSO thing a lot. That was a lot of what I was trying to do. You're still looking for the Taliban, but the reality is the Taliban is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You don't got to look around. You don't got to look around to find a shadow of government. You know, I can go in and say, hey, when someone gets murdered, what do you guys do? And the village elders like, go see the Taliban. And so you have this government that's functioning, and you're trying to bleed energy off of it. By the way, the entire time we're there, over at the PRT is, you know, an Air Force, and I'm not making fun of anybody. Everybody's doing their damnedest, by the way, as an Air Force major in our case. And he's like, yeah, I run the Taliban, come in from the cold. We'll get you set up with your aid package and get you going in the right direction. Yeah. That guy can deploy for 6 months, 9 months, however long his rotation is, put a 0 on the scoreboard, and it's like, aces, you're a good dude. Because that program didn't work effectively, and no one cared, right? So and I'm going to keep going with the whole thing you're talking about. We lied to ourselves all the time. Every quarter, there's a thing called the RIA, and it was an assessment of economics and capability of the government. And I love this tool to teach us, like, it's just us losing, check this out. And so we'd all sit down, and I raise my hand, and I'm a wise ass in meetings, but in a very careful way. Is this the kind of meeting where we actually contribute, or do we just be quiet? And they're like, no, Pete, we want you to contribute. I'm like, great. Where are the Afghans in this meeting? Oh, well, this meeting's classified. We can't have Afghans here. Raise my hand again. Can't we just declassify it? I mean, they know there's a hospital here, right? It's not a big secret. And so that's part of that lesson to get us thinking in a different way. So there is no hospital in this one district. And, you know, the boss, 06, the boss is getting a briefing, and he's like, I thought, and sir, we're going to move forward to the next tranche and advise that to the RC South. And he was like, there's no hospital. I thought they had to be a hospital to even try to move to the next tranche. Like, sir, we've lowered the bar in this area. Okay, well, then why are we here? You know, and I'm not saying we leave, but if we're not going to do the job, if we're going to allow something less than the standard to be there, then yeah, they're going to go to the Taliban for medicine things. They're going to drive into Pakistan, you know.
After we had built up their security force, the Taliban didn't need to give them rifles. They just need to give them bullets.
Yeah, that's right. So all of these things go into that village stability thing, where I would say also, and I'll just use ODAs and SEAL teams as an example. You guys often bounded over each other when you guys rotated in. no respect for what had happened before. No, like, hey, we're right here with girls being in the classroom. We've been studying this for a while. You know, if we can get to 40 girls in a month in a school, that none of that ever happens, right? And so you guys come in and you're like, fucking SEAL team's a bunch of losers. They don't know what they're doing. This is every Army unit. So I'm just using you guys as an example. And then we wouldn't know what happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We would have no idea. No progress was being made. So it wasn't just that it was all these individual wars. Well, it was total amnesia.
It depends if you were saying no progress is being made from the ground point of view versus the sit rep OER and NCOER point of view, because those are two different sets of progress. One is we're winning the war and the Taliban is crying right now, and the other one is what the F are we doing? Right? Like they like continuity sucked. And I'll tell you what, you know, I went on 2012, 16, 17, and 18, I was over in Afghanistan, right? And I remember the very distinct difference between 2012, 16, 17, and 18. In 2012, you had the Taliban in hiding.
Yeah.
Right. We had the surge, and they weren't to be found unless they're pulling triggers at you. They're hiding. They're doing, you know, shady shit. They're putting IEDs and bicycles and riding them up to patrols. I mean, they were just dirty. Right? Doing dirty things, but they fought. And that's the one thing that I will always have respect for the Taliban. Them dudes could fight, you know, and they were fast. And I'm talking fast. They could scurry up some mountainsides with a cigarette hanging out their mouth like it was nobody's business. But, you know, the next portion of that goes down to, gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. You know,
that's all right.
Yeah. So, you know, we had that whole issue with the Taliban over there doing that. But when it came down to like 2016, 2017, 2018, we went from the Taliban being in hiding to all of a sudden you're going into these regions, which are the government has vastly ignored. And they are, how do I want to say this? They are literally openly flying Taliban flags everywhere. Entire cemeteries filled with Taliban flags posted up on people's houses. You know, places where I would never get shot at, I'm now getting shot at. Just, I mean, it was asinine, absolutely asinine. And I got, you know, the Taliban dudes that I'm literally going on, you know, raids for, kicking in freaking doors. And they're, you know, again, Taliban flags all over the place. We got poo sites confirmed coming out of this location, you know, killing a bunch of dudes on the way in, killing a bunch of dudes while we're in there, and capturing a bunch of them. And there's dudes, obviously this entire little village is full of Talibs, and they're like, oh no, I'm a cop. You know, look at me. I've got my ID card here. Like, it's fine. Like, I'll be, you know, it's like, no, it's like everything was so dang crooked. There was no getting around it. And it all had to do with the drawdown and the transitioning to, what the hell did we call it? When we're advising and assisting, right? Wasn't that right? Advise. Yeah.
And part of that whole thing, you know, I had a friend who was there right towards the fall, and he's like, you know, we got to get ready to get these guys out of there because the government's only going to last for so long. I'm like, dude, there is no government. Those guys all have their deals in place, and you know, they're not turncoats. They just turn, and they're like, yep. But they lived in Taliban country where I was, at least where I was, right? I mean, Nangarhar Province. These are places where it's inescapable that these guys have a backup plan. And they work to survive. They don't work to build a nation or build a state. It's a very hard thing for us to understand, but they are passionate about what they're doing. It's just we're not a reliable partner. You know, I'm talking about farmers are the most brilliant people when you go to any country. And he's like, Pete, you guys are negotiating with the Taliban right now. And I'll be goddamn, there's the Stars and Stripes headline story. Obama meets with the Taliban. You know, it's like, so this guy lives in a place with no electricity, no roads, just pomegranates and little tiny mules, right? Just like these tiniest, like, you know, there's Great Danes that are bigger than these. This is a prehistoric place. And this guy knows that our president is talking with the top of the Taliban. And he's not learning that from us. He's learning that from the Taliban because they're everywhere.
So that's what I like to call redneck rumors, right? So bear with me here. So I was on a cruise ship out of Galveston for my 40th birthday and for my first wedding anniversary. And the hurricane hit, and this was back in June, right? So hurricane comes down, it starts slamming Galveston. They make this announcement. Hey, sorry, you guys are going to get stuck on this cruise ship for an extra couple days. I was like, good thing we got the drink cards for, free to like whatever. And anyways, we're trying to figure out whether or not we're going to go back. We're kind of sitting there waiting on the word for everything and whether or not everything is going to shut down. We didn't know. They hadn't announced it yet. And my wife's laying by the pool. I'm like, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. I'm just going to figure out what the hell's going on. I just need to go take a piss and we need to know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to go take a piss and chill out. And I'm standing there at the urinal, and this very clear, like Southern farmer-ish type guy ends up coming up, and he stands next to me. I'm like, what do you think, man? We getting out of here? And he goes, man, I was just talking to a buddy of mine, and what he said is that the water, and he just breaks it down. He goes, nah, man, they're about to call it out here in probably about 10 minutes. We ain't going back to port today. And I was like, fair enough. Good talking to you, friend. So I go out and I tell my wife, I was like, honey, I just talked to the Redneck, and he told me we're not going back to port today. And she's like, you know what? I trust Redneck rumors better than any other source of information on the planet. And no bullshit. 2 minutes later, they come over the intercom and end up announcing, oh, we're going to be stuck at sea for another day. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, those people know, man. They do. Like,
they do.
Word gets around. But at the same time, they also believe in the dumbest shit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This is no lie. They'll hang a rock around their neck to get better from an infection. That's a real thing.
How about this? Are you aware of the dragon that lives in the mountains?
No, I'm not. I've never heard about that. Is that a real thing for them?
This was an actual intelligence report that got generated at one point in time. And it's so ridiculous. It's hilarious because the dude that, like, I'm not even afraid to say that because it's so fucking stupid. You know what I mean? So they believed that there was a dragon that lived in the Hindu Kush, and it was responsible for the rise and the fall of the sun in this particular village. And in the morning time, it would emerge from the mountains and spit a fireball into the sky. And that is what the sun, what created the sun. And when the sun was going down, the dragon would emerge from the mountains and chew on it, and it would go down. And because the United States of America had the B-2 bomber, that we were capable of killing the dragon. Therefore, we were able to control the rise and the fall of the sun, and we were very powerful. Yeah. It was words to that effect. It's so stupid, right? Yeah. But here's the funny thing, because sometimes you just got to do dumb shit. We ended up taking like loudspeakers and hooking them up to like the miso speaker or whatever, and literally downloaded dragon noises and going out on a raid, just literally ripping like, like loud as it worked. It scared the shit out of them. It was hilarious. Anyways,
No, but there's 100 of those little stories where we figure a little piece out and we were able to compete, but we hated to be wrong about things. So the next unit rolls in, brigade commander, we will push south, encircle the Taliban. I'm like, oh my God, again with this fucking plan. I'm like, you guys have to understand, all of your vehicles are shot. They're worn out. And this is winter, by the way. This is how they're going to catch them. We're going to catch them in the winter. I'm like, okay, they're not sleeping in a camp like it's the Civil War, they're not there. And you're going to turn off the main route. You're going to drive about 2 miles off the route. You're going to lose the route because it's snowy everywhere. And then someone's going to have to take a shit. You're going to have to pull over. You're going to get stuck. That's what happens every single time we do this. And they didn't believe it. They thought because they were a badass, brigade from a, major, it doesn't matter, right? They're a big, well-known unit. And it's wintertime. And all of a sudden, a giant rock falls into the valley in the main pass where they were going to push a lot of their things. It's the only main road to go through south of these big mountains. And as you know, mountains are big. We start reporting on this, like, hey, there's a big rock there. They're all laughing because it's the biggest rock they've ever seen. It's completely put a cork into that pass. You're not going to be able to use it. Can we task some air and go out and look at it? And they wouldn't even, these are intel people, right? Right. They wouldn't even listen to us. And we're like, look, we keep getting reports about it. The Afghans, this is what they're doing to get, did not care. And then we start telling the engineer, and he's like, there's no rock on this planet that I cannot move. Okay, great. I'm just letting you know it's there. I don't know like how big it is because they don't think in terms of rods and cubits and volume. I don't, I'm just telling you it's there. Get a look at it. So this takes a month. Right. And we're briefing this thing so the commander at least hears about it. And so the engineer's like, yeah, we're not to see that rock. I can't move that thing. if I move it, the whole mountain's going to come down and it's going to block the entire.
Can't move that rock, baby. Nope.
Right. And so like the entire, like this, like the Achilles heel, their whole plan, right? But they refused to believe that this rock was going to be existing or anything. So we have our dragons too, where we just believe that we can overcome anything by working harder.
That's right.
But the reality is there's no Taliban even there. You're chasing a ghost, first of all. And all of these things, like we've been here. We're trying to tell you, get you up to speed a little faster. Could not be bothered. You know, so there's all these dragon type things where you're trying to solve this puzzle and then you get savvy to it and you can, like, I love the idea of playing the loudspeakers. That's hilarious because you can kill that dragon potentially. Go ahead.
You know, like we joke about like how dumb they are, like something, you know, about like, but it's within this realm, right? And I try to explain this to people, like intelligence doesn't necessarily mean that you have, you know, been able to read a lot of books and you can regurgitate information, because those same damn people were so flippin' resourceful. It wasn't even funny. Like the amount of things I could see them accomplish with like a round freaking stone and a stick was insane. You know, they could fix anything. They could always get food. Like they always, like, it was always great. You know, like just the general knowledge that people like here in America, you know, if I told you that you could literally take an egg out of a hen house and hold on to it for a couple of weeks in the summer and eat it and you're going to be okay, most people in America would be like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. No, you would die. And you can, you know, and it's little things like that. So you look like an idiot to them, just FYI.
Right. Yeah. We had a problem with respecting how they got along. So I built up a lot of influence with this unit because I've done my job well. And so I would get invited to higher level meetings, which kind of took me out of the field more, but you got to pay the price. Right. And so one of the State Department people kind of shoots an arrow at me and he's like, Pete, you've been out in, you know, District X. What's the number one TV show they watch out there? You know, and it's a very pointed question. And I get to say to him, Dennis, there's no electricity in that valley. Nobody's watching anything. They don't even have like telephone comms out there. And it made him look stupid because he tried to take a crack at me. And it turned out he had no idea about the ground truth. And this is kind of what we're talking about. Is like there's this ground truth that we have to deal with. And if we don't, and that means eating bad food, shitting your pants, all these other things that come with that nobody realizes we have to do. If you don't deal with the ground truth, then you're up in the spaceship, you're up in the Enterprise, well off the surface of the planet that you're trying to study, and you can't fix things that way.
I thought he was going to pull a Ranger TV joke. I didn't realize he was that stupid.
Yeah, nope. Now he wasn't stupid. Look, super smart guy, right? And he's got this high level State Department job. But you can write and be like, so we worked in this area really hard to develop influence with the Afghans and with the Americans. And so we got trusted by a bunch of guys. There actually was a Green Beret that asked us to help him out with education. And we did this whole thing, multi-week project, trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yep.
And what the Afghans said to us with the Afghan Ministry of Education, these elders, and by the way, a religious guy, AKA Taliban. And so like, don't ever bring books to kids. That's his job, pointing at the Ministry of Education. Like, that's a fucking win. They want the Ministry of Education to do their job. Okay, great. We write all this down. Don't ever take books to kids, you know? And he'll come to us. He'll come to us and grab the books from us. They want us to help them. They really like, we're buying into this whole thing. And then the next year, the State Department gets whacked on a patrol delivering books to kids. They ignored the whole thing. And once you do that kind of stuff, these guys talk, they know each other. Like, those Americans fucking said they were going to not do this shit, right? Yeah. And so there's a cost for that. And we hate that. We hate that we can't just go, and we can hear it like when our politicians talk. They're like, we'll just tell the Afghans to do this. That shit don't work. They don't do what we tell them to do.
Dude, I don't know. It just I don't know. It drives me nuts, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like these people had absolutely no idea on so many levels what the hell they were asking us to do and what they were doing. I was going to pull out of this location one time, right? We were packing up, we were getting ready to go. We had beat the hell out of these people. I mean, we beat the hell out of them. Like there's another team that's going to hang out. We're getting the hell out of Dodge. We got better things to do. And we'd beat the hell out of them to the point where it drew a lot of attention from their upper levels of leadership. right? And there was a key player that was coming into town, and we knew exactly where that key player was at. And again, I'm like, I hear about this the night before, reading over things about where this key player is going to be at and that he's coming into town. I didn't think they were dumb enough to be like, hey, can you guys take care of this guy for me? That to me is something that you're just like, I think we have enough small diameter bombs in our arsenal that we could risk a Civcas or two to get rid of this guy, you know? And like he's that, like we're going to lose a couple civilians, but he's going to be, he's responsible for a hell of a lot of dead people. Let's go ahead and get rid of him, you know, small diameter bomb and send. And I'm literally walking my bag like off. I've got my ruck loaded up and like we're fixing to like gaff out or ground, you know, drive out.
Yeah.
And literally walking out, and detachment commander's like, hey man, this thing's coming down the pipeline. You know, you and this guy, we basically want you to go out and pick this dude off, right? So you and this other sniper, you guys are gonna go out and pick this dude off. It's like, I ain't fucking doing that. Because number one, I've been over there in that area. Like we've been there, we've dropped a shit ton of fucking bombs over there and gotten a lot of gunfights over there. Yeah. And we killed the hell of a lot of them, but I also know what's left in that space. I also know of a particular elite unit that attempted to go in there and got their shit handed to them for going in this area, just because of how the terrain's built and how well dug in they were to this area.
And they're good at that.
And you know, they want me and my buddy to go crawl into a space and just snipe this dude from a couple hundred meters away and then, you know, get back out of there, hopefully. And I'm like, look, man, like, sure, we can play that game, right? But here's the deal. And I know you're new to this game. It's not going to change anything.
Right.
I can't express that enough. Like, you are not going to change the course of this war. And I remember having this conversation with this captain. It's like, look, dude, you can think however you want to think, but it's not going to change the course of this war. Like you don't understand. My job, your job, our job is to get people the hell home alive, kill as many of these pieces of shit we can while we're here, effectively and efficiently. But more importantly, I want to make sure I'm bringing people home alive, because at this point I've lost enough friends. I don't feel like losing anymore. So GFY, I'm not doing it. We're not, like, GFY. It's time to move on to the next big thing. This guy is not that important, and it's not going to change a damn thing. And everybody knew at some point in time, we're going to end up leaving, and because of just how the political game was getting played, and it's not worth it, man. You know, it's just not.
There's another version of that story, not that particular story, but like this situation, right? And so I got a partner who does the same kind of thing as me, and he's working with the Marines. He is a former Marine, so, you know, they all get along. I wouldn't be able to accomplish what he did because it'd be too hard for me to initially even get respect of the Marines to have this kind of influence. And so they're targeting the officers like, I got to kill people. That's what I'm here to do, is I got to kill people. We're going to kill this guy. Yeah, this guy right here. And my buddy calls him Aga John, which just means a man. And they're going to kill Aga John. And so my buddy's like, let me look into him temporarily. Look at this. Look at that. Got a little stand up.
Sorry.
And so,
yep.
No, it's good. I love it. I give them what they want. Give them what they want. So he's looking for Aga John. He's looking into him. And it takes about a week, right? And that's like the suspense he had. And so he comes back and he's like, hey, that's not the guy you want to kill. First off, he is the main tribe elder for all of the internally displaced people. And if you kill him, you destroy that network. Second, he is about to be picked for an official Jaroa slot. So you were going to kill a guy who's part of the actual government, which is not part of the goal here either. And so he saved that dude's life. He didn't get him killed that day. And of course, that guy has no idea. But there are so many times where we pick the wrong guy, kill the wrong guy, because we're just in such a rush. There's no subtlety. There's no elegance to what we do. And so when we try to state build and make a state have some kind of influence with its people, you know, we're like, we got to have Bob. Bob's got to be part of this meeting. Bob's not even fucking in the government, man. Why did you guys love Bob so much? Right. Oh, well, the last unit loved Bob, you know, and the governor hates Bob. So he's the governor. And one of the greatest things I learned from one of the Afghan elders, he was a former Mujahideen guy. He was also a holy man. In this case, he was one of the longest sitting governors in Zabul. And he said, you know, Pete, there's only room for one sword in the scabbard. And I'm like, you're fucking right. So what, and this is late enough in the game, but these guys need to be the sword, right? And so my commander's like, it's his show. And we got his plan, and we started working on his plan and let him be the sword in the scabbard. It takes longer than that to fix that, but that was sort of the approach we needed to have, and we never got around to that. We never trained people to do these things.
Mm-hmm. You know, what do you know about a guy named Commander Aziz inside of Afghanistan?
I've been removed for about 10 years, so I don't know.
It was a little over 10. It was beyond 10 years. Aziz ended up getting killed, I think, in like 2013 or 2014. Okay. And then they went after and started taking out some other people. It's a really interesting topic to have, and it almost honestly, it should just be a follow-on bullshit discussion within itself because it's hilarious. Yeah. But if you are to, and it's really interesting to go over and look up, you know, for those that are watching the show afterwards, go over to Google after this. If you're watching this later, pause this episode, go over, type in Commander Aziz, Afghanistan Special Forces, AZIZ. And what you're going to end up seeing is a bunch of really interesting articles that you should probably read up on, because when we do a follow-up, because this is a shitload of fun, we're going to talk about that guy.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And I'll send you my paper. I wrote a paper on female engagement, because I saw from Iraq and Afghanistan, because I did both theaters, that it was bullshit. Not that women aren't important, but we can't, our ideology and our ultraism get in the way of the practical reality that dudes run Afghanistan. And if you don't start with because we would talk to, and you know how this is, man, these valleys, forget all that. I'm going to tell you a different story. This is everybody, this is a different story. And this kind of illustrates why I'm not even going to bother starting with the women. There are two young dudes. They're in town. They're on the main route in, you know, the main city. So we'll call that City A. And they rob some people. And they book it out of there, and they head up back towards their part of the valley and the mountains. These are big landscapes. So they're going to go through Village A. They go through Village A and they whip right through, no big deal. The police are in pursuit. These are Afghan police, and they chase them into Village A. And Village A is like, hey, we don't do cops around here. Put out the barriers, start the fires. We're going to have us a firefight. So Village A starts fucking up these cops, and the cops keep coming and they keep getting fucked up because, you know, they don't even understand. And they think the guys are from Village A, but the guys aren't from Village A. They're from Village B.
Sure. And
then when we find all this out, right, it's you look at Village A and you're like, why did you guys fight the cops? We don't fucking do cops around here. We told them that. They told them to get the fuck out of here. And that's how complex this place is. They didn't care that these guys had robbed somebody. The tribes will take care of that. But these motherfuckers right here, and that's the kind of complexity we couldn't accept, and we couldn't see it and deal with it even when we did see it.
I want to know the amount of people that got killed by false reporting from the Afghans and Iraqis just so we'd take out their arch nemesis, because that shit fucking happened a lot,
all the time.
Dirty as hell.
You know, I've made all these mistakes, by the way. When I'm not talking like I knew everything. I had to fuck up a lot. I always talk about like my bonsai tree of life, you know, being a spy and everything. I had to snip off every branch of that tree is a stick. Every fucking thing, you know, because it's too hard to know all this stuff. And it's not in the goddamn book. You have to learn it through experience. You have to hear things you're like, that is not true. And then find out that shit is true. It's really hard.
Yeah, dude. God, man, I don't know. Where do you want to go next with this? I'm having fun. I don't care. I got coffee. I'm obviously not going to sleep. I got podcasts and shit to do all day. So what do you want to do next, man? What you want to
let's talk about your podcast real quick. I know a lot of these guys are here because of that, and so I don't want to bore them to death. But here's one thing I like about what you do, and we see a lot of these things out of that. And I'm sure we disagree in some places, but we can figure all that out, right? But when you hear reporting about Afghanistan, Iraq, Israel, Ukraine, a lot of it's bullshit. And there's so many things that when
pretty much all of it's bullshit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. You have to check, and you're great at this. You find someone, who the fuck is Pete Turner? And you squirrel down and you're like, you know what? This guy's done this. That all smells legit. This guy's tied to, oh my God. You know, and you see like the money, or you see the influence, even just the words, affordable housing. Just call it housing. Don't spin it into affordable. So when you see these words, when you see these people that come from a certain area, it doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that they're going to tell you a certain kind of story. I love that you sort that out and talk about it live on your show.
Yeah, man, it's kind of jacked up, you know, and I guess that's the whole, it didn't kind of start that way, but that's definitely what it turned into. And there's a huge need for it. In my opinion, there's a huge need for just cutting through the bullshit and just saying it how it is. Nobody's perfect. You know, and I talk about it on the show all the time where I'm like, look, if you agree with somebody 100% of the time, you're an idiot. because you don't think for yourself. There is not a single person on this planet, and you know how to prove this? Every single human being that's watching and listening or checking this out later, if you're married, that is your best friend. You tell me you agree with your spouse 100% of the time, my ass. So there is not a snowball's chance in hell. And that's somebody who you want to please because you want to get laid eventually, right? So there's incentive there, and you still don't agree with that person. So don't sit here and lie to me and tell me that, you're going to agree with a government or a foreign entity of some type or an organization or a resistance, whatever it is, 100% of the time. And so when I hear you agreeing with people 100% of the time, you're a fucking idiot. And it's just, we got to be honest about it. We got to. And I mean, whether or not it's on, because it got really bad on the Ukrainian side. It got really bad, over on the Palestinian side for damn sure. Some of the Israeli, groups are starting to get that way. But I'll tell you where it really, really bothers me, right? I went into a space the other day. I'm trying to remember who it was that brought me in there, but Grant Cardone was in there and a couple other individuals and stuff like that. And I got invited to go in there. I wish I could remember where it was at, but this lady that was co-hosting, right? Clearly has no idea who the F I am. I'm just up there talking. She has no idea why I get invited in there and what I'm doing in there, right? And I got asked to speak on what's taking place overseas. I had mentioned that, basically everything coming out of Gaza is a lie. The vast majority of it is a lie. And started speaking to it. She's like, "Oh, you're not going to come up in here talking about, genocide that way." And I'm like, okay, first of all, this is a alleged MAGA space, right? And by the way, I'm voting Republican this go round. Not to mention I have extensive experience on this matter. Some would even describe me as a subject matter expert. Maybe you should shut your dumb ass up and listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
Confirmation bias in this world is so freaking ridiculous. And I think the one thing that we try to build over on that channel versus anywhere else is just, I will constantly say, do not believe a damn word I say. Go do your own research, right? Yeah. Do your own due diligence, verify what I'm telling you. Don't even believe what I tell you because I am human and I make mistakes, right? Go verify, go figure it out.
Change my mind too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite quote of all time, Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. And right now we have a bunch of people run around on this planet that have been fooled. And you can present them with black and white facts, video evidence, put it right up in front of their face, scientific proof, and they'll still deny it.
This guy right here knows what he's talking about, because one of the things I learned from all of my mistakes was that I make way more mistakes than I'm even capable of recognizing. Even if I recognize that there's a lot of them, I have to evolve. I have to get better. When we do this kind of work, it's so complex. Sitting down and talking to someone and trying to understand everything that's going on in that room, man, that ain't easy. There's people in here asking about my background. I've got a lot of time overseas working in conflict zones, over 1,000 combat patrols. I was a counterintelligence agent. That's my background. You can ask me more. There's all kinds of stuff about me out there. But when you're that kind of guy, and my job is to be desperate about helping you guys do your job better, or the government. And when I'm able to get the Afghans and the Iraqis to say, "Get me Pete, I need my advisor here," right? That means I'm doing my job. But that doesn't sound like spy work. That doesn't sound like counterintelligence. But I've made a network so hard that the Iraqi general's like, "I won't make this decision without Pete," and that's not immediate work. That's not, I always make fun of, like, when we're trying, at first establish rapport. I have my rapport establishing card here. "Hello, my name is Pete. I have a daughter and a wife. I live in Jacksonville, Florida." Rapport building done.
Let's talk about, okay. So one, you want to, networking is really, really important, right? Like, I've got a buddy that I can text right now whenever there's bullshit coming out from Iraq, and he'll text his friend, the Iraqi president, and he'll let me know what's actually going on. Right.
Exactly. Right. Yes.
Like, that's how important networking is and how damn good we are at doing that. And it's one of those things that, people are always asking, like, how do you do this shit? And it's practice over time. And you get used to reading people really, really well, and you get used to knowing who you can trust, who you can't, and everything else. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, when I say the term, his friend, I use that loosely. Right. Right. God, where was I going with that? I'm so sorry. I ended up losing it.
The networking thing is powerful, right? When you networking, have the ability to slow down. Yeah.
Yeah, networking is absolutely powerful, but those skills, like you end up surviving off of as well when it comes to being able to read people. And that is a life skill. And I think, when I started off going onto social media and actually speaking out publicly, I started talking about, I started speaking out against PTSD, survivor's guilt, suicide, and all sorts of stuff. I started off with, what the hell did I call it? Firefight Fridays over on Instagram. And I would tell stories of firefights, but I would, because that's what people wanted to hear. Like, talk to us about firefights, tell us about gunfighting and shit. And I'm like, that's shit's lame, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's fun from time to time until somebody gets hurt. Then it's no longer fun, right? It's fun when you're on top of the hill. It sucks when you're on the bottom, It's fun when you have ammo. It sucks when you're down to your last mag and you're stuck behind a rock. Right. I mean, there's all sorts of little nuances that go into it, but that being able to read people deal, and people will look at PTSD, right? And they'll be like, they have this, how do I want to say this? They have this preconceived notion of what that's supposed to look like. And I blame it on like 80s movies and 80 TV shows making fun of Vietnam vets back in the day on like how they're like, right, where like there's a loud bang and they're jumping under the table and covering their head and shit, or they're just running around with helmets on screaming, like, no, that's not what it is. And that's not how it works. And it's something that's up there, like one of the main signs is like a heightened sense of awareness, and constantly being aware of your surroundings and everything else. And people look at that as if it's a bad thing because it's a sign of PTSD. I would argue the opposite. As long as you can control it and as long as you're aware of it and you're using it appropriately, I would argue the opposite. Because there's different things that we do here in the United States that actually, we could have done overseas, and I'm not talking about, running like, I'm not running counter surveillance routes every single place I go. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not something I'm doing, or SDRs, but right. There's little takeaways that you end up getting from that, and your ability to read people and pay attention to their little minor mannerisms that end up telling you a lot about who they are, particularly when they're talking to you. And it makes it really easy to read people and call them on bullshit really, really fast. Even if they're speaking on camera, like you just pick up on these things because that's how, like, you survived off that instinct, like, do I walk in that room and talk to that individual, or do I put a bullet in them? So it was really interesting to me when I went into law enforcement, because I still had all those skills in my head, right? I just hadn't figured out how to convert them over to fighting crime, so to speak, right? And so, like, my first couple of days on the road, I'm like, all right, man, this is gonna be cool. Let's go flick on the lights. Let's go, like, I don't know, man. Let's just drive fast, like, I want to get in some fights. Like, let's get, like, whatever, like, let's have
some action.
On, man. Yeah. And my field training officers had all, like, I mean, it's bad, when I had, gone through my interview process and stuff like that at the PD. Oh, hell, dude, I'll put it this way. I didn't speak to a single soul at the police department other than in my interview process when I sat in front of the board. Right. And they're like, hey, congrats, like, you're great. And then I interview with the chief, and the chief's like, we love you, you're good to go, or whatever. And so I'm sitting in to do like my psych eval and stuff like that going through it, or maybe it was at some other point in it. And I'm sitting in the room for the psych eval and I'm just chilling. And when I drove in through the parking lot, I saw this dude with like I think it was a 275 license plate. And I was like, oh God, I bet you this joker got hired. Right. And so I kind of looked the way I do now, but my beard was a little bit shorter. My hair was actually a little bit longer. And I sat down and I see this guy with his KIA bracelet on. I was like, that's the dude that was driving that truck. And I sit down and he looks at me and he goes, hey man, are you that dude from group that got hired on at the agency? And I'm like, yeah, man, that's awesome. Word travels fast, So by the time I made it to FTO and everything else, like the very first FTO I have, we get in the car. He's like, dude, great to meet you, man. Like, I heard a lot of good things about you. Like, this is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm assuming I don't have to tell you about officer safety and this and that. And I just stop him. I'm like, bro, I can kick in doors. I can talk to people. I can do a lot of different things. And I'm very well schooled in that. Like, I'm very confident that if shit goes down, you and I, we're going to be okay. What I don't know how to do is be a cop. Like I need you to put that bullshit aside and teach me how to be a cop. You know what I mean? And he was like,
it's a different dance.
Right. And he's like,
you're a dancer, but I don't cha-cha. Yeah.
I think that's the problem with people though, because I was able to take guys like that and like learn from them. You know what I mean? And actually
Mhm.
and absorb all of his information and what he does for how he goes about doing things, how he investigates different areas he targets and why, different pattern recognition that he looks for out on the streets. And I'm able to correlate that and relate it to what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, those little nuances from PTSD that everybody talks about, of those heightened sense of awareness and everything else. Well, guess what? You end up noticing a hell of a lot more shit. And you end up being really, really good at your job. And you end up picking up on the subtle nuances of people, you end up noticing like that look on locals over there that you knew that they were just shitheads, and they were up to no good. So now as a cop, I'm just going to go over and I'm going to say hi to you and see how you react. And if you end up bolting, well, what I mean? Like, so just little things like that end up making a huge difference. And people think it's a bad thing. And I push back. I disagree, man. If you can control it and you use it correctly, it's an absolute good thing. And I think there's a lot of things in PTSD that get a bad name. Obviously, not sleeping at night, not so good, right? Been up all night, things like that. But
the dead people that show up at night that keep you awake or wake you up and all that stuff. There's some real negative things, and it's so true. Like, if we can convince ourselves that it's okay to have damage, and it's okay to iterate through what getting better looks like. Maybe riding a pony is the thing for you. Maybe it's cows. Maybe it's group therapy. But if you haven't found it, you have to cycle through. You can't, just as much as we all want to go to the gym and be in shape or work on our professional proficiency or shoot, you have to do the same thing to take care of your nugget. Because I know for me, all the patrols and all the just anybody watching, and I know you get this, but if you're a solo or a 2-person team doing intel ops, forward deployed, out off the big camps on the side of a mountain somewhere, you're doing all your own prep. You're doing all your own recovery. You're doing all your own mission work. You're doing all your own writing of reports. You're doing all of your own checking in for meetings. I'm describing a 25-hour day right now. Some days are 36 hours. And we were talking before this, when the lieutenant comes up, it's like, Pete, we're going back out. Do you want to go? Yes. Yes, I've got more work than I can do in 3 days, but yes, because my job is to be off the fucking camp and go do it. And that changes how my body works. It beats up my shoulders and my back, but also makes my brain just like go, hey, how about we just put cortisol in there? That is more cortisol, and that's part of that adaptation, right? So I have all these great skills, but I have control of those things. Yeah.
I don't think people understand too, like the sense. It's really hard to explain to, like, the sense of brotherhood that you end up getting from all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I've referenced it before, and it is, I don't know. There's something that happens. And it's really hard to explain. Like losing your friends is fucking painful, man. It's so fucking painful because you start thinking about, like, their wives or, their parents or their siblings or their kids. And I don't know, man. It hits different. It hits different. And you end up coming out unscathed on the other end. Like, I'm sitting here whole, x-rays will tell you differently. Like, I am broken fucking half, but like I appear normal by all means. I'm broken half, but I still hate myself because I'm whole. And it's like, did I not fight hard enough? Like, I don't get it, man. Like, I fought my freaking ass off. And why?
True.
Why them?
Well, and
it's just,
I have all the lies that I tell to someone because part of my job is to give them this thing that we're going to do, and then you come back and there's a particular Iraqi governor who's dead. And he's like, you guys are leaving for real? Because we wouldn't tell people. People understand. We would just peace out and be like, disappear, And so that governor's like, I am the government, but there's nothing here. And so I started telling these guys, like, hey, we're getting ready to leave. And like, yes, I know. One day you will leave. And I'm like, 6 weeks. No shit. What can we do right now? What do you need? And they're like, they're going to kill me. And then I'm like, and I'm the guy delivering this message. Those people live with me still, right? So even if it's not just the death of friends, it's these people that you have to work with, build a relationship with. And then now, because of ill-principled behavior above us, we're just going to leave this person in no way ready to do their job. And boy, that shit hurts. It breaks me. It breaks my heart. The girl I told you about when the State Department got whacked up in Zabul, Ann Smedjinghoff, that girl sits on my shoulder. Because no matter what I did at the height of my ability, height of my access, writing the report, and the State Department, same motherfucker was there too. Didn't say, hey, don't do this. We're not supposed to do this in this area. she's dead because of it. And it breaks my heart.
You know, let's talk about how fucked up our government is for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's talk about how fucked up our government is for a second. So, incident I'm about to talk about made international news. So I don't get to disclose, what is it? You can't disclose time and location, but you can do one or the other. Is that an accurate statement? Right.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So we're just not going to disclose either of those other than it was in Afghanistan.
Sure.
And this international incident had occurred. Now I wasn't on the ground for that international incident. Right. I was in a different location in the country. And my buddy's team ended up getting jacked up, and I had been in this area previously, and my buddy that's over on that team gave me a phone call. I was like, "Hey Matt, we're going over here. You know, can you come over here and kind of like brief me and the Fox up, like the intel sergeant, and talk to us about, you know, what we're facing, what it looks like, what the people are like." And you know, you go over there and you talk to them, you explain to them what they're about to get themselves into and what's going on the ground over there. And they got fucked up pretty bad. They lost a couple guys, and I'll just put that, they got fucked up really bad. And within about 30 to 45 minutes of this gunfight kicking off, it had already made international news. It had already made international news, you know, and it was not a, it amazed me how accurate it was because of the Taliban's ability to pump out propaganda that quickly, down to amount of civilians that were dying and why it was happening. And it fucking pisses me off because, you know, you think about, the term that's being used over inside Gaza, which is like human shields, right? The IDF uses it. And this particular gunfight, from friends that I trust with my fucking life, and this one, they had literally had the civilians holding them in front as literal human shields of this village, holding them as literal fucking human shields inside this village. Men, women, children, didn't fucking matter.
Right.
And these dudes are getting pieced up like bad. I mean, what do you think happened to those people? You know, like, you know, bullets travel through people, you know, what the fuck are you going to do? And, I spare you all of the bullshit, but my buddy wound up in the hospital, and he was in his hospital bed, and I go over and I'm hanging out with him, chilling with him in the hospital, you know, and there was a fucking dog and pony show, by the way. He had just came out of surgery. And of course, all the fucking, you know, people want to be there to support him. And I kind of kicked him out of the room, and I'm hanging out with him, and had the nurse pull in a chair, and I'm just chilling with him as he's like slowly kind of coming in and out, you know? And, you know, eventually he came to, because he had to have a lot of extensive surgery, and he didn't know the guys on his team were dead. So I ended up talking to him about that and explaining to him, how his buddies died. And it wasn't maybe an hour later, you know, you know, after I talked to him, I had to go out. I talked to his nurse, and I was like, look, I know he's telling you he doesn't want narcotics. I know how fucked up he is. And I know what I'm about to tell you is extremely unethical, but you need to put that motherfucker to sleep, because he's not going to be able to do it. And his body needs to recover. You need to put him down. Like, I know it's unethical, but I'm telling you right now, if you don't give this shit to him, he's not going to go down. Right. So I explained this to the nurse, and she kind of like agrees, and we go in and we talk to him together, and he ends up taking a nap. And this is maybe about an hour after I give him that news. So you picture he's just out of surgery. He was fucked up. And out of the people that was left, he was in charge. Like, he was the highest ranking guy alive, right? That was left. So technically he was the MFIC, or the motherfucker in charge, right? That was left, but he was not okay. So he's got narcotics in his system. He's fucked up. He hasn't been out of surgery but a couple hours, and I had the nurse jack him full of fucking drugs so he could go to sleep. You know, we talked him into it for this one time so his body could rest and recover. Now, to explain to you that situation doesn't even do it justice. I mean, when you see people that have had this amount of blood fucking pumped back into their body just to keep them alive, after having that much trauma, I mean, they don't look the same.
Right.
And this guy still has, I mean, I was wiping blood off of his fucking ass. I didn't even wipe the blood off his fucking ass at this point before some piece of shit fucking officer gets sent down because all of this shit made international news to come and investigate and try to get answers out of him.
Yeah.
I had the light off in his room and I'm sitting in the fucking chair and I just described to you the actual fucking state that he's in. And this motherfucker has the balls. Some poor ass fucking captain that gets sent down by SOTF has the fucking balls to come down and try to question him as to what took place on the ground and why there's so many dead fucking civilians. And I feel bad to this day about what I said to that guy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he should have fucking known better. And I told him, whoever the fuck sent you down here to ask these questions, like you tell them to come fucking see me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
no, I do know what you mean. I mean, that's real. Like when someone has something like that, you're like, you come to have them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But that is the state of our fucking government. Yeah. And that was years ago, by the way, but that is the state of our fucking government, that the Taliban puts out ridiculous fucking propaganda.
Right.
To that extent, talking about U.S. special forces, just fucking schwacking dudes.
Yeah.
And our fucking piece of shit chain of command and everything else. Wasn't mine at the time. And it's an investigation that gets opened up by the military, whatever. Right. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's the state of these fucking high ranking officers inside the military right now. That instead of them standing there and being like, that's fucking terrorist propaganda, you're not going to question my fucking operators. Shut the fuck up. Right. No, they want to send somebody down immediately.
Yeah.
To talk to guys like that, to try to fucking spin a narrative instead of just being like, you know what, you can shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And you can wait.
Yeah.
But we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and you probably have been in the same kind of meetings I've been in, where someone's career and livelihood in life are in the balance, and someone who wasn't there is trying to decide: do we go down the, legit from the rules of engagement, or UCMJ? Which way are we going to go? And there's a person there, it's a commander, and they've got to decide. And if you have pressure from above because it's a national story, that your buddy in that bed, he's nowhere near the people that are going to make that decision about his well-being, and there's time to wait. I mean, when that chow hall blew up on Merez,
Bob Merez.
Yeah. Their first thing was to come after us. And we're like, we didn't blow it up. Like, what do you think we did? We didn't even know what happened. At the time, we didn't know if it had been a mortar strike, because that would have been a legit thing, because we got incoming all the time. We didn't know, and that's where they started. Now, the general there did a good job, and obviously we didn't have anything to do with it. It couldn't stop it anyhow, but that's the initial response, is like, go get those guys. What? This is not the time for that. There's all these dead people.
And these are the same fucking idiots, right? Like, there was rules back then about not being gathered in fobs and, X amount of groups, and you have to remain dispersed and shit like that because of indirect fire and things like that.
Sure.
And fast forward to fucking Afghanistan. I think it was like 2016. I think this was 2016. And, we got local nationals working on the fucking fobs. We got, people walking around who are badged, unescorted and things like that. And they would shut down, what is it, on BAF, Route Disney?
I think so. Yeah. Isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah. Right down the fucking middle, like running along. They'd shut down Disney for morning PT, and they just have people running on the fucking road. They'd organize like these morale runs and these PT runs and shit, and just have people just gathered in mass. And these are the same assholes that are pushing for this shit that they don't understand where they're at because they're on these fucking fobs all day long. And they don't understand the capabilities of these people.
We could do this.
And some fucking Afghan smuggled in a piece of fucking det cord and a blasting cap.
Sure.
And then gathered everything else on the base and made a fucking suicide vest and Allah Akbar'd himself right in the middle of these people that were gathering up for this PT event on fucking Bagram.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's
the fucking aftermath of that, dude. You know, like, you want to talk about incompetent fucking leadership in the military, like that shit right fucking there. Like you can't even tell people you're in a fucking combat zone. You don't get to have a morale run for today. That is the dumbest fucking thing ever. And you're going to post fucking flyers of this shit up for the enemy to see because you know they're walking around these fucking bases gathering intel.
Yeah.
Because your dumbasses let them in because you don't want to, because you want to maintain. And here's the other fucked up part about it. You want to maintain troop numbers in this country. And so we're going to waste billions of fucking taxpayer dollars hiring contractors and hiring local fucking nationals to maintain troop numbers and fucking support on these bases to keep these operations running. And because of your bullshit fucking politics, we have security leaks and people fucking die.
Yep.
I am so over that fucking shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, that's a good point. But I don't want to keep you all day, man. You've been up for hours and hours, and I can hit the ball right back to you again, and we can just keep doing this. So let's just agree to do another one and go. And by the way, thanks to everybody who's been chatting. I've been trying to make sure I got everybody's comment on there. This has all been incredible. It's we've not even swapped, like, have we been in the same room before? Because there's a decent chance of that as well. But I appreciate the heck out of what you do, Matt, and the show. I've been watching it, and it's incredible. And all these current events and the things that you were able to bring, I just think it's great. And well, look, you don't need me to tell you you're doing great, but I think it's great what you're doing. And I'm super happy that you came on the show. It's fun. It's healing for me too.
Same, man. It's like a breath of fresh air. And that's why, and here's the other thing too, man. Yeah. You know, I look you up, I see your channel and shit. I don't give a fuck. You know, if you have 5 people or fucking 500,000 or 5 million, I don't care. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, this is the shit that it's all about. Being able to have these conversations and being able to spread some awareness at the same time and just fucking connect and feel like you're human again for a day. You know, I get so fucking pissed off sitting inside these little chats and things like that, or dealing with these idiots that try to tell folks like you and me like they know what's going on over there when they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Right. Like, literally don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And they want to tell me that kids aren't carrying rifles over there. Or that they're not raising them to be fucking jihadists, or that they're not putting it, like, I like the amount of restraint I have to have on a daily basis not to hunt these people down and fucking put them in check is insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't do spaces partly because of that. You know, they'll get in an area where I'm talking and someone's just pontificating, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'd rather talk to you. I'd rather talk to someone else who would bring even more positive tension to this conversation than that. And once you've, I understand what you're saying, because there's so many things that get wrong with these things, and just these vast assumptions about what's going on, when you and I both know we don't know shit about what's going on in a given area because we're not even there. And then you got to be there for 6 months before you even start to have an idea of what you're doing. And so, I appreciate you. I don't want to take any more of your time, so I'm going to roll these credits. You want to say anything before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, man, I do. It is important. Here's why. You know, like, I get asked, like, and especially being like in the community that I'm in, you know, a former member of that community, whatever, I'm retired now. Like, why are you going out and doing things like this? Why do you have conversations like this? Because if we don't have it, nobody will. Unfortunately, I believe that the youth of our country are being corrupted by a lot of dirty-minded, sick individuals from lots of different locations. And you need not look any further than what's taking place inside Gaza right now for who's doing the corrupting, right? And if we're not out there talking about this type of stuff, they're never going to learn. And unfortunately, like, even at 40 years old, I got to go on YouTube, I got to go on TikTok, I got to go on IG, I got to get out there I got to go to colleges. I got to talk to people, because if I don't, they're just going to learn from all of these propagandists. So it's important that we have these conversations. It's important we share. It's important that you guys like you and me are able to connect and feel human again after dealing with these fucking people from time to time, and be able to just unload, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. It's a great thing, and I've really enjoyed it. All right, I'm going to roll these credits. Everybody else, thank you, all of you so much. It's been great to see all of you come back and ask me questions. I'll be better about answering them later. All right, here we go. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.